Mom! Mommy! Mommy! Mama! Mama! Mama!
What?
Hi.
Little more fun. You motherfucker. Oh my God!
Have you ever done butt stuff?
Yes. There you go.
How much money you got?
A lot.
How many boyfriends you got?
A lot.
How many fans you got?
A lot.
How many friends you blocked?
A lot.
How many times did I ask for help and how many times you got us?
A lot.
How many times did we hit the ground? Now here we are, can't stop us.
What is cannabis doing for you?
Put some dog tags together, man.
All right, guys. Hey, listen, welcome back. We are not live, but we are live. The number one podcast in the nation, number one cannabis podcast, PV Unfiltered. This is going to be a fun one. I say it all the time, but guess what? It's Mother's Day, and that's why I am super fortunate to be sitting next to, and I'm going to say this the right way, and I'm going to say it politically correct, these fucking hot women. And Tommy, that's why you're sitting over there.
Of course.
So here we are. Let's get into this, right?
Yeah,
Mothers,
Mother's Day.
let's do an introduction. I'm going to let you guys do the introductions. I'm going to sit back and let's go one by one and talk about. We'll get into the first introduction side of it, and then so Janet is going first.
Janet's going first.
Okay, so Janet's going to go first, and
all right, Janet Matula, have a 31-year-old, just turned 31. So yeah, 31-year-old living in Laramie, Wyoming.
I bet she is safe from COVID.
Oh God,
she's safe from everything.
Okay,
she can't even get pregnant out there.
You know, her thrill of the day is watching the squirrels she feeds. That's it. That's it.
So she gets to see some people getting a nut.
Yeah.
Someone's getting a nut in Laramie.
Poor thing. Okay, your turn, Leslie. Go for it.
Oh, me. Okay.
Yeah.
Leslie, an Uber. I'm a mother myself of a 12-and-a-half-year-old son. And then this is my mother.
Lori Yaffe Delisle, and I am the mother of I can't even believe I'm going to say this out loud, a 40-year-old daughter.
Not me.
Where is she?
Not me.
She's
No, I'm just kidding. I've met her.
Yeah.
I met her. I'm just kidding.
And a 38-year-old daughter.
That's me.
And the grandmother of a 12-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old, all boys.
And let's not take out one of the biggest feats ever. I mean, other than having these two as daughters, let's not eliminate the biggest feat, because that is also not that it's defined you as a mother or as a woman, but it does give a really big perspective on who you are as a person. The fact that you've also beat cancer.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Survivor.
Yeah.
It's yes, and this is, if you know anything about Platinum Vape, we are big advocates in every direction on this, and so we had the honor of doing the breast cancer walk, marathon, run, however you did it, on a tricycle, bikes. There was everything you can think of, and it was great to sponsor and be a part of, but then also being able to be with this woman and understand that she is a survivor, and she's also surviving 2 daughters.
Yeah.
And 3 grandsons.
There you go. All right, so that's probably
and one of the daughters works for her too, so that's another level of survival. Is like, you know.
Can we
2
turn the
sons
AC up a little
working,
bit?
But mother and daughter is a different situation.
Yeah. Yeah, but that was a great walk, and I was really honored to be asked to be
Oh, you were
part of
pumped
it.
up, and I can remember the energy, and not just not just you, but I think the vibe when you go to something like that, if you haven't experienced it, I'm not going to say you're a loser, but man, you're a fucking loser if you've never experienced something like that. Not even just a matter of supporting, like just, even if you don't want to support, how about just support yourself and understand the vibe that you get when you go to events like this? And it might not just be a breast cancer, walk, or just be open-minded to this stuff, because it's not what you see on TV. That's the visual side of what you get. It's when you're there and you meet people that have gone through this, and the energy that you have in the aftermath of what has happened. Everybody's on different levels. Some people, it's to hear. I've had a small bout in that ring as well, but I can't claim it to be anything like what the majority have, and people that have been defeated. And I don't say it in the wrong way, but the energy you get at these events, it's unimaginable. And that was the biggest thing, because that was the first one that I've ever been to. And it's amazing, because when you see, it's kind of that same energy that when you are walking across train tracks and you're missed by a train by this much and realize that you're still alive, like that energy, that's what it is. But I think it's all the time, because she's drinking coffee.
There's
but,
such a sense of gratitude when you're there, though, looking around, and
oh,
listening to people's
man.
story. Even reading someone's shirt,
Yeah.
and it's like they tell the story or whatever, and you see so many people in the same shirt, and it's like, oh my gosh, the entire family rallies around to,
even if they're not here with us anymore.
100%. Yeah.
There's so many that, yes. And you know why that is?
Mm-hmm.
It's not because they lost a loved one. I mean, they lost a loved one, and that's what put them into that circle, because the energy is so strong. Mm-hmm. They still get to recognize that person, but they also, in a selfish way, they gain that energy. Mm-hmm. That's my belief.
It's a reminder as well. It keeps that person alive for them.
No, I get it. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think that's so important. And for me, I hadn't done a walk in years. And Leslie will tell you, I did my first breast cancer walk while I was going through breast cancer treatment. And I had just had a chemo treatment, and 2 days later we did this walk, and I could barely make it through the walk. And I had no hair, and the kids, my daughters, and she had a brand new baby, were walking behind me. And that feeling that
it's crazy.
Are supported.
It literally gives me
all of
goosebumps.
that. Yeah. And it doesn't matter, like you said, this just happened to be breast cancer. I don't care if it's a veteran with PTSD.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. When you're around people, everybody's got a story, right? Everybody's got a story, and there are survivors of everything, right? Mm-hmm. We've all survived something. And being in a mass group of survivors is energizing.
Yeah.
Well, it's like an army. It's like an army. I did the 3-day, the 60 mile.
Oh my God.
And
my hat's off to you.
But who did you do it for?
I did it for my sister-in-law who
Okay.
had breast cancer. And so I walked in her name.
What is her name?
Her name's Marilyn Matula.
There you go.
There you go. And I walked for her, and so you get this not only camaraderie with the people you're walking with, but at the end you're done, you're exhausted, and everybody is so elated. Your feet hurt, you're sore. It's just a wonderful experience, and you're right, George. If people have not experienced the give back, because that's what it is.
Yeah,
It's
just showing up.
Give back.
But don't you
back.
get more?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Don't
It-
you
like I
get
said,
more?
that's why I say it's selfish in a lot of ways, because you don't have to have had cancer. You don't have to have known somebody that had cancer.
No.
You don't.
But we all do.
We all
Absolutely.
don't
There
get me
is
wrong.
no
We all
one who
do.
doesn't know
But
it.
I'm saying there's no prerequisite to going to one of these events. And I mean, it's not just breast cancer walk. It's everything. And that's why the React Foundation is so big on that, that give back. And that's the energy that we got. Cody was there as well. there's no prerequisite. You don't have to be a certain height, weight, color, race, nothing.
Right.
Go to one of these events, and I promise you, it'll change your life. With no doubt, it's going to change your life and really your perspective on kind of who you are like I said, you almost feel a little bit selfish.
Well, hopefully
when you do that.
Again.
I know.
Hopefully.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Hopefully they'll be having them
figure
again.
out a way to still have
In some way or another, we'll always be able to do something with it. This is so much bigger than COVID and any of this other shit. So I'm never worried about that. But I can tell you this. I'm extremely excited. It's the same thing. I don't want to get off track, and this is fun for the beginning part of this, but it's the same thing for like Pride and that. Pride last year was the first year that I ever went to a Pride event, and I can tell you honestly, I was never really inspired by going to Pride, and now I'm the biggest fucking advocate. I mean, we literally had a float.
They're so
in the
fun.
parade.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now,
Those
don't get me
people
wrong.
are
There's
so fun.
there's some stuff that's going to come out on another podcast of a little bit of an argument we had about Pride, but and it may have been a big giant blow up condom that I wanted on the float. But nevertheless, it's like I've watched this on TV and I've watched these things go on, and I'm like, what the fuck are these guys thinking? What's this and that?
Right.
When you go to an event like these, if you go open-minded, don't get me wrong, you're going to see things and hear things that you wish your eyes and ears never took part in. That's pretty hard for me to get there, but I mean, for a lot of other people,
acceptance that you get.
You have to go and experience these things, because if you don't, you're not experiencing life. And and there's good and bad in everything. But I'll tell you what, I'm a big advocate of that. I never was against it. We have probably more gay people working in this company than straight. And it is what it is.
You can't ask that question.
What's that?
You can't ask that.
Listen, you don't have to. You don't have to anymore. You don't have to anymore. Because it's like people are so proud. It's like, yeah, I'm gay. Back in the day, be like, okay, all right. Now it's like, yeah, gay. And it's great. We're a big advocate, and I'm not an advocate of it. Even if it wasn't a Platinum Vape thing, that we sponsor, I would still go.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things, and I don't want to sidetrack. So this isn't about breast cancer and Pride. I just wanted to get that part started.
Yeah.
Yes,
thank you for that.
absolutely.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
I think this is really about, if we're going to make each other cry.
Oh God.
This is about Mother's Day, and everybody out there, as a mother, you should watch this, because this is the fun side of what we do. This isn't all cannabis. You know what I mean? And that's kind of the thing that we want to get everybody to understand, is that this is fun shit. And I have to do something. Like, Cody runs the company. Me and Tommy, we got to make shit up. So this is what we're doing.
To be honest with you, I wouldn't be in the cannabis industry if it wasn't for her.
So there you go.
That's huge.
So
God, you're crying
I don't know where
No.
I don't know where we want to start, but it's not with you.
See, and then he plays music, and I feel like the leaves are gonna start falling and shit.
They better not start falling.
God.
He glued those down pretty good.
I went from thumbtacks to.
I want to start. I'm going to start this off with Janet, because you're gonna come in last place because your daughter's here.
Right.
But I can say we have stories with Janet, and I think fucking one of the best podcasts ever that I don't want to get into. If you haven't seen it, I don't know. Tommy can tell you what episode it is, but it's the COVID.
It's our PSA.
Yes, it's the PSA. I watched that again.
5.
I honestly, episode 5.
Yeah.
5.
5.
It's just crazy. In 2 months, we have how many?
This is episode
10?
what?
Oh, this is going to be 11.
11.
Actually, no, I'm sorry, 12.
12.
Oh.
12, and we got a few other already in the works. But that one was a lot of fun. So we're not going to go back and watch it, because then you'll get the understanding of who Janet is, and I still don't, because I literally watched it on Sunday again, and I still don't know. I still don't know who she is. But
Keep them guessing, Janet.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, Janet has a daughter, believe it or not. And I think this is a tough one, obviously, because she is not home, and this is her first year out of the nest and married and in Laramie, Wyoming. Yes. Shout out to Laramie.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the Mother's Day thing, that's a
toughie.
That's a tough one when you have a bond like these two have. And especially the fact that this is like the first one apart, if I'm not right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because when she went away to school, she was home by Mother's Day. So yeah. But for me, what's really difficult, I'm the matriarch of my family. Wow. So I don't have a mom to give things to, you know, and it struck me this morning. I was like, oh my God, you know, I'm not buying gifts. I know. I'm the keeper of the secrets and the family stuff. So, but it is going to, this year's going to be a little tough. It's going to be a little tough, but.
You know, hey.
Well, for social distancing, I'll loan you Leslie.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm here. Just come downstairs.
I know.
Here you go.
But how great is it, you know, Janet, back in the day you were in Hawaii, right?
Yeah.
Weren't you in Hawaii probably smoking some of that Hawaiian reefer and doing that shit over
I
there?
I went to college
probably,
in Hawaii.
Yeah,
and you were talking about hula.
Oh,
I can still do
I
the
guarantee
hookie lao.
there's something out there.
Okay.
So there we go.
Afterwards, tell me, get the ukulele. These two are on the hookie lao.
But
I'm smoking the Pakalolo, and George is just talking about it.
Oh,
That's it. You know, back in the day, you'd be sitting on the beach. I'm sure, this is probably a visual that once again, this is unfiltered. So, you know, Janet in college on the beach, you know, 30, 40 boyfriends spread out throughout the United States.
When I went to school, I have to tell you, I mean, because everybody was on R&R. And I always say you could be a pig on a stick in Waikiki and get a date.
There you go.
I'm not kidding you. It was like 10-1.
So I see Janet, you know. I see Janet on the beach.
I took ukulele 1 and 2, swimming, and of course hula. And my mom was like, "And you still flunked out?" I mean, how does that happen?
And this is what I'm getting at. So there she is. What year would that have been?
Oh, we don't talk years.
Okay, we'll just say 1971, and there she is.
It was a little later than that, but that's okay.
Okay, so there she is. She's on the beach, you know, 30, 40 boyfriends, because when you're in Hawaii, you don't date in Hawaii one person, because you have tourists.
I know.
You have the tourists coming in. So you know what I mean? And it goes both directions, don't get me wrong. So here we have Janet, you know, on the beach, probably topless, big fat joint, lots of little postcards laid out. She's got each one with a name on top of it.
Sandler in 50
And she's exactly
waiting for the boat to show up, you know?
She's sitting here, you know,
right?
You know, writing off. Nobody was in Wyoming, I promise.
No,
but
dear mom.
Not that there's anything against that. But, you know, dear Tom, dear Bill, Eddie.
You were here.
You know what I mean?
Can't make it off the island to see you, but.
Right. So I picture that. And then waiting, you know, because you had to go put a stamp on it, put it in the mail, send it off. 2-3 weeks to get there. That person gets it. They decide, like, first of all, who the fuck is Janet? Then they go, you know what? Hey, she's hot. I'm going to go ahead and write her back. So they write it back. And then you're waiting on the beach. And then that next, you know, a month or two later, you're reading your fan mail. And what I'm getting at, everybody's staring at me like what the
Where are you going?
I promise you, I have somewhere I'm going with this. So what I'm getting at is how great is it that now you just pick this thing up
and
boom, you're like immediately you're there with your daughter. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's where I was going. Took me. I love these.
A long way to get there.
We went all the way to Hawaii and back.
Yes, we did.
I think the Jeep broke down a few times on the trip, but
no, it got there. It got there. No, what I'm getting at is that you know, back in the day, whether you were you know, a mother in the military or, you know, even now, you know, but back in the day, if you had that disconnect, whether your kids were at college, you know, all these things going on, you didn't have that. Whereas right now, you know, it's great because not only that, you can Skype, you can Zoom, you could have multiple people, you could have family, you could have generations all in different areas of the world and still be on the same phone call and still be talking and seeing each other. And, that's technology and it's amazing. I mean, that,
I'm going to cut in real quick. Since you just talked about that, when I was deployed, the first time in the Navy, it was really hard because I'm going to date myself. We didn't have this technology, and on a ship, literally you were just typing on a disc, 3.5-inch disc. Man, I just dated myself again. And you had to give it to the admin, and literally they're reading what you're sending off, because, obviously, the missions that you're doing. Fast forward into Afghanistan when I deployed, and literally I was using my iPhone. So, and then you can like call home and Skype and it made it easy. I'm like, what is the difference between now and then? Like, it was hard back then, right? Yeah. It was the fact that every morning I can make a phone, it's 25 cents a minute, but still I can make a 5-minute phone call. Just say hello, I'm alive, I'm here, and then later on get on a Skype call for like 5 minutes or something with my family. And it made it much more easier. So the
not as much isolation.
And that's and that's as usual. Tommy stealing my fucking thunder. My thunder out of this. I'm gonna break the longest. I'm gonna break in, guys, because I'm gonna steal everything this guy has. At some point, I'm going back there, and he's gonna come out here. No, I mean that's what I'm getting at. Is like you can now, at least you can get that feeling. You know what I mean? That you before you couldn't get. Like he said, listen, I haven't been in the military, but I can tell you, I know a lot of traveling and whatnot. I'm not going to date myself, but not because of the reasons why you're thinking, but I really don't care. But what I'm getting at is that you didn't, in the previous, you didn't have the ability to really understand that part of it. And we could go on a whole different tangent about what technology has done, not just for that, but for marriages. For all kinds of things, because there's a lot of things that get lost in translation. When you're texting somebody, it can go bad really fast. But if you're FaceTiming somebody, it can go good really fast too.
Oh yeah.
And I can tell you, I travel a lot. So what I'm getting at is it's so good for where you're at, and as being somebody, especially in the military, deployed and not having that direct contact. Physical contact, having a wife, having a family, that whole thing that you thrive for, at least you can do hugs and kisses over the phone at any time that you choose. Yeah, you know what I mean? And so going into Mother's Day, Janet doesn't have her daughter here, but I guarantee they're going to have coffee and probably smoke a joint together. And, and to be able to do that is great, because you can literally sit in your living room, throw it up on your TV and just sit back and just shoot the shit as we are right here. You know what I mean? And no, you know what? We're not touching. We're not touching, but we're still here. We're still having a great time. And whether you were on a screen and you're on a screen and you're on a screen, we're still just like, we're getting the emotions. We're getting, that's a huge thing. I don't know who to thank. Whoever came up with all this shit, look at us,
But I think it was those people back in the day who, had to sign language through the video calls, They were the smart ones. It's like, nobody really wanted to hear shit you had to say, but they still wanted to see you.
Exactly.
And be like, is she looking? I can do something else,
Right.
So, yeah.
Can I ask Janet a question? I want to ask you a question. What are you gonna miss the most this Mother's Day? Knowing that you can see one another through that technology. Right. What is it you'll miss the most about her not being here?
You know what? Well, first of all, touching and, the hug, the cuddling. She would pile in bed. Here you have this 28, 29-year-old daughter who would still, whenever she was home, would run and jump into bed with us.
Well, not to take this out. When you were, last time you were in Laramie, I forget what it was, but we were on a phone call. I'm like, hey, what's going on? You're like, oh, I'm just laying here in bed having coffee with my daughter.
Yep.
It's like, so
it's that kind of thing. It's the intimacy. Yeah. You can't really have intimacy on the phone, I don't think. Well, there's different kinds, but that snuggle stuff is what I miss the most. But still, and I'm sure Leslie does it to you. Hey, Mom, I'm doing this. how did you do it? Did whether it's a
Especially with
recipe,
business.
business, whatever it is. I mean, she'll call me up all the time and say, I've got this situation. What do you think about it? Yeah. But then I miss my mom.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because I can't do that.
And it's the thing where she's, you both are in the same room and you say, do you want some tea? Would you like a cup of tea? Because I'm going to go get some tea. You can't do that when you're FaceTiming, know?
No, you
That's
can
my
actually.
mom. That's my grandma.
You can say that.
Yeah, I'll be right back. You
Yeah.
need to take it with you.
Right.
But
But I mean, and let me ask you a question. And you and I were talking about it before, about women in business and how that all is and how it is in the cannabis industry. And those women who are really take charge and communicators and compassion. So you're working with your daughter. Mm-hmm. That has to be tough.
It's interesting. It's not from a standpoint of what she does in the company, because she does what I don't do, right? So she's in the accounting department and she handles APAR and she's brilliant at it, and she's, she's working a lot.
Sounds really familiar.
She's working a lot from home.
And look at it. Both of us are sitting here on a podcast.
my sister's at work right now.
Yeah.
So and I have so much respect for her as a mom, because her kids, like Leslie's, are out of school through the remainder of the year, and they're 5 and 3. And she's working from home and homeschooling a 5 and 3-year-old. And it's funny because we'll be on our group call in the morning and a half-naked boy runs by, and I go, oh, he's wearing a school uniform, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
He's in gym class.
But I think working with her, and like the things that touch me the most are when my daughters come to me and say, okay, I have a question for you about business. Mm-hmm. It means the world to me, because
the mom shit you have down.
Yeah, the mom stuff, how to do this recipe, I go to them. Like, Leslie's an amazing cook, as everyone knows, right? And I'll call Leslie and I'll go, oh, I need to do this with my recipe and I don't know how to do it. And she'll tell me. But when it comes to business and they come and they ask me, it just melts my heart, because I feel like all the years that I've been in business and all the years that I've fought through business mean something.
And as a woman.
Yeah, and as a woman.
Because, I mean, it's like being a woman in business.
Like, I had to sniff and I was afraid I was doing it in the microphone.
Being a woman in business and being a person, now you're not cannabis, but it's
a portion of what I do is in cannabis.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But being directly in cannabis in business, there's a parallel there, because
you're pioneering.
It's like it's probably the hardest thing ever. So that's relative as a fact of growing up and then being in business as a woman, especially now things are getting easier and more respectful on that level, where people can sit in a room with a businesswoman and go and not feel, like, oh, I'm in trouble for even sitting in this. You know what I mean? It's like a woman in business now is badass. You know what I mean? Whereas before it was
so many powerhouse
Exactly.
women too that are coming up, and it's like, oh,
I love
shit.
it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Because
And
it's such a new space. They're gaining. That
it's not even the
equal
fact.
force.
Listen, it's not even the fact that they're women. It's the fact that what they are doing is above and beyond.
Yeah,
because they've had to beat the men.
absolutely.
And to be a woman in business, and especially where you're at, you've grown through this. And I say this is kind of relative in the fact that my kids will be the first kids generationally in cannabis where they can honestly say, I grew up and I started in cannabis.
Right.
And now you're going to have women and their daughters that are now going to be, you've made it so much easier for them to make the decision to be in business versus going, I can't do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's
because now we're getting to this point where just because you're a man doesn't mean you make more money.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And just because you're a woman doesn't mean that you're the only one in the house that can fucking cook and clean. Trust me. I know that. It's like that stigma has been there, and now you can see it more and more and more. And watch on social media. I mean, listen.
Well, the pendulum
it's
has
nothing,
swung back.
Yeah,
right?
it is. And but it's nothing. now guys are realizing like, okay, to do the dishes, it's okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It doesn't take away from who you are.
Yeah, that's something.
And it
I'm
used to be,
teaching my
listen,
son
it
right
used
now,
to be,
too.
it
Yeah.
used to be that way where it was like for a guy to do dishes or to do laundry, just to know that you knew how to do it was not a good thing.
But the fact that we're having this conversation still drives me crazy, you know?
right.
It does.
Yeah,
It has to
absolutely.
drive
Yeah, but
me
it's
crazy.
on such a different level though.
But
It is. It is.
Look
Listen,
at
if
her.
this was,
Look at her. Look at we're
no,
both
listen.
looking at each
This,
other.
if
like,
this was 10
"Oh."
years, if this was 10 years ago, this conversation wouldn't even be taking place. And if it was,
It would be taking
wouldn't be
place.
taking
You
place.
just-
it would be
the
taking place within women,
Right.
women's
Exactly.
conversations.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And
That's
it,
true.
You know, it's interesting because Janet asked me before we started this about women in cannabis.
Yeah.
And one of the things that really propelled me into it was that I felt that it was a space where women could really rise to their competence, you know, because we are so competent in business, and it's an arena where people were trying to figure things out, right? So we're all trying to rise up together, not just separate out. And I think that there are so many women in business that have found a voice in cannabis because cannabis
Big.
is
Yeah.
you know, the
very well respected too.
Very
Cannabis
well
needs a
respected.
voice, though.
Yeah,
And I think that's the
absolutely.
huge thing. It needs a voice. It needs advocates. It needs people to bring their, you know, experience from other companies they've been in and go, okay, I know about this. Let me bring this to cannabis and make it what it is, and then say, hey, we all kind of pitched in to be here.
Well, I think if you really look back at this, if you really look back at this, and I'm just going to say it the way that I say it. I think men were fucking afraid because we don't multitask. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Women they're like octopus. They literally can do on the same level, 8 things at one time, and all this shit gets done. And men, we just can't.
Well,
It's
I
not.
think there's another
it's-
layer to that,
it-
though, too, George, is that I think that in cannabis, men have sort of been that, breadwinner,
Right.
and they're a little more concerned about taking that risk, right? Women, we got nothing to lose.
I don't disagree.
Right. Yeah.
I don't disagree,
You know,
but I
mean,
think
for
I
those
think
that
just
have made it,
just
like,
the how men and women are outside of cannabis, outside of anything, and I can tell you this. I'm not going to name names, but we'll start with Cody. So I mean,
poor kid
this is
doesn't
no, but this is how it is. It's like you can be at home and you can watch. A woman can have a kid here, this going over here, laundry be done here. All these things going on, and she can still tell her husband, "Don't forget about this."
Right.
Hey, don't forget you got this. Don't forget you got that.
Yeah.
The guy, he's like, you put him on a couch, he's great. You put a kid while he's on the couch, things get uneasy. You put anything more than that, and nothing's getting done.
And then ask him a
It's
question
just-
on top of that.
Oh, you're not.
Like,
You're not. First of all,
can't even
you're
think
not
right
even.
now.
No, you're not even gonna get acknowledged
Yeah,
that there was ever a question.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's like.
Well, fortunately, that's not the way it is in my house at all.
No, but I think I'm probably exaggerating a tad bit on that. But reality is this: is that it's not that women are better than men and men are better than women. I mean, we've learned we can't live without each other. You know what I mean? But what I'm getting at is the fact that I really think women are more capable when it comes to multitasking. And I don't know if there's got to be. I'm sure there's scientific shit.
I'm going
in
to
there
give you an example.
or whatever it is.
I'm going to give you an example. If women went to lunch, a business lunch, women will say, "Hi, how are you?" Blah, 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 and do maybe 2 or 3 minutes of chitter chatter, right down to business.
Right.
Right down to business. Right. And then socialize over dessert or coffee at the end or whatever. Business would be taken care of on the front end. You go to lunch with a man, and I don't know what there is about whose dick is bigger than whose, but they got to do that. They got to do that whole sort of thing for 15, 20 minutes. It's like, Jesus God, when are we going to get to the facts?
But that's the honestly, that's the reality.
Yeah.
That is the reality because
it's just a funny
I don't know if
thing.
we're going to get sidetracked on this,
we
but that is the reality is that men are typically there's the alpha.
Yeah.
And there's no matter what group you're in, somehow there always has to be a definition of who the alpha is at any given time.
Oh, I know.
You know what I mean? And I think it's
but for
it's
us, but for us attending that lunch,
trust me, you do care which one has the biggest dick. let's not. We're gonna go into this size matters stuff, and trust me.
I think one of the cool things that I've seen in business as far as a power play and swap between, male, female, if you will, is my mom and dad when it comes to their business, and losing my dad and him being, the face, the head of the business, everything. And my mom having such a super strong supporting role throughout his entire time. And then the minute he wasn't able, oh my gosh, she jumped in right away. And it was like, okay, no questions asked. This is now my company. This is what we're doing.
Right.
And it wasn't
so once
living
again,
in his shadow. It was, I revamp it. I do it. This is now my project.
Right. And that also is the character that you've built by being that person. You're not letting, listen, for every one of you, there's 10,000 that just fucking curl up in a ball and call it a day.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot to be said, and there's a lot of things going on with COVID that is defining people and who they are. And I can tell you the people sitting at this table right now and the person behind there and people working in this company have not flinched at all. Right. No. This is it. And so having you on board here is just, it really is the show of what we're talking about as a person, because for every one of you, there's 100,000 people that are curled up in a ball right now because of this and this and this. And
this is
and the same thing that's happening with COVID and with this is it's defining people and who they are. And if you let that define you, if your husband defined you as, okay, this is me and this is all I can do, you're done. You were done a long time ago. If cancer was what defined you as a person, you would have succumbed to that and been gone a long time ago with that as well. And so that's how we look at people, and you become friends and family and bonding and whatnot, because you want to be around people that are similar to yourself. And when you look at that and you're here, you have learned in your life that nothing is going to slow you down. And
absolutely
right. And when you go to other podcasts, like listen to Joe Rogan and I push these guys, it's like, Andy Frisia, great people to listen to, because in a time that we're in right now, whether you're a woman or man or whatever, it's important to do what you have to do to make yourself feel good at whatever level that may be. And I say it to the company here and everybody hears, educate yourself in whatever your needs are to be comfortable to come to work every day. There's so many of these things that you have to do. And back to this is where the people sitting at this table right now, defining who you are is on your terms, not on anybody or anything else's terms. So that's why your mom's so strong, and that's why you're so strong, and that's why that builds, because she is that person that is a rock and has gone through things. And guess what? It'll be so fucking easy for you, and has been, I'm sure, to be able to deal with things. I'm not talking about cancer. I'm talking about everything in your life.
Right.
Because you go like, look, if she is still doing this and this happened and she's had cancer and she's done that, you can't get away from that. That's not something that you can go, oh, it was a special diet or it was this or that. No, you know what? It's your mom. And it was her will and desire to overcome that stuff and just be like, this is who I am, not that.
Right.
And no offense to other people. You know what I mean? It works through everything in your life. And this is what I profess to my kids, to everybody that's around me, is don't let hard times define who you are. And when you really look at this is when it's easy for you.
Don't let a good crisis go by.
Exactly.
Rise
See what I mean? Like, fucking bring it in.
rise to the occasion.
Hug it up.
You know, lean in.
But you're not.
Get it
But
done.
you're not bullshitting. Like, this isn't a bullshit thing. Like, you're serious. It's like, bring on the challenge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the biggest thing. And Leslie, you know, and this will all kind of come together. And I'm not going to date myself being 52 years old, but this is where it all comes together as you grow older and understand. And this was what was great about my dad and understanding how this works.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Nobody knows how long we're here.
Yeah.
But the benefit is that picking things up and understanding how to fix them and move to that next direction is huge. And that's why, you know, we do this all the time with what we're doing in business, and we have these meetings to understand, you know, like, we know what you're capable of. There's never been a hidden thing. It's like, we're just, okay, let's do it. Yeah. Right. You know what I mean? We're going to make mistakes, but that's why, like, having your mom sitting here is understanding who you are as a person.
Yeah.
And it makes it so much easier for us because if you don't gain anything from your mom on this level, then you might as well curl up and be under a rock.
Yeah.
But that's not you as a person. Right. You have fucking taken everything. Yeah. And there's never a time it's like, oh, I can't do that.
No.
I've never heard it. It's the worst word I can ever, I can't stand the word can't.
Yeah.
And that's when I can say I can't stand it, because it's like putting up a wall. And so if this is Mother's Day, be fucking thankful, because,
So
you know, and that's the same. I'm not going to, this isn't all about you, by the way.
Whenever I feel like I'm not strong enough.
Yes.
Any one of the women in my family.
I was just gonna say we come from a long line. We come from a long line. I mean, this whole COVID thing, you know, it's funny because my heart goes out to you, because I do still have my mom. She's 85. She's living up just north of Seattle with my dad, who's 87, and we're worried about them, right?
Yeah.
But
and that's great, and you should be.
But George, I call her, and you know what she says? We made it through World War II. What are you worried about?
Right.
Like,
yeah,
she's still going to get her hair done. She's still doing all these things. And she's like, I go to the store when they say the old people can go, and I do the things they say, and I'm doing da-da-da. But honey, this is not my first rodeo.
And my sister is an entrepreneur. I'm wearing her clothes, by the way. This vest and these pants. She started her own women's golf wear company 2 years ago.
And the name is?
And the name is Kenona Golf and Sport. And you know, I was
tough industry, by the way.
It's a really
very
tough industry, but I'm telling you, you know, I wear her clothes into the boardroom because they're lifestyle. And she and I were talking yesterday, and you know, she's always been the person I've looked up to in business, because she used to be executive vice president of Calvin Klein Swimwear and Speedo with a company named Warnaco, I think was the name of it, which was the parent company. But, you know, 40-something years in the garment industry. And so when I got into business, I would call her, right? How do you handle this? She had 350 people reporting to her, right? So can I run a company with 7 people? Hell yeah, I can, right? But so we come from that line. You know, her daughter is very entrepreneurial. My daughter's very entrepreneurial. I mean, when Leslie wanted to get into the cannabis industry, I'm like, if anybody can do it, you can. Like, you know more about cannabis than anybody I know. So go, do. Spread your wings.
And I think
be
that
the pioneer.
You know, that podcast that we had where these guys were on, it's, you know, we look at things very fortunately, and you know, and once again, this isn't just about you or you. It's about everybody. But you know, when you get into a company and you want the best of the best, it doesn't matter. And sometimes unfortunate paths also then open up a door to another path. And it's not that anybody's not meant to own a company or run a company or whatever, however you want to look at it. It's just, I can tell you, I mean, we've all lived this life, and sometimes we end up in places that, like, I'm in cannabis. I would have never guessed I'd be sitting here
Me either.
doing a podcast in cannabis. You know what I mean?
15 and a half years
But then,
and doing
yeah, I mean-
hair professionally. Never thought I would go into cannabis.
See what I mean?
Ever.
And, and then, to be able to have my kids as part of this business as well. And my business partner being Cody, it's it's exceptional. But, when you look at it for us, our job and our commitment to this company is to give and do the best that we can possibly do. So when you look around this and you see, nobody knows how long we have been trying to get Janet on board in this company. It's since day one. So to have Janet sitting here, once again, is a huge honor. And then to have,
I'm
it is.
honored.
I've said
I'm
it.
honored.
Listen, I've said it a million times, and regardless, I don't care what anybody says. Fucking key player. I mean,
You got a couple of key players right here.
and that's what I'm getting at. And we
Yeah.
talked about this before too, is that, cultivated, I told you in that last podcast, it's not done, and don't ever look at it as a failure, because it's truly not. It's an industry timeline. And that's what this is. And that's what this is about. The fortunate side is that we got you guys.
Yeah.
So when you start
by the
looking
way,
at,
I had a hand in that.
Yeah, I don't think we were ready though.
No,
You know what I'm
we already
saying?
discussed that.
We
No.
definitely were not ready, but coming in here and seeing everything that you guys do, when we are ready, we have so much support.
right. No, listen,
That's the cool
and I said that is that don't ever walk away from Cultivated because Cultivated didn't walk away from you.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the difference being is that when the time is right, it'll be there. And however it works out, we're 100% supportive on all of that. But the benefit to Platinum Vape is they look at who we're getting in the company.
Absolutely.
And it's not based off of failure. It's based off of just how things have transpired. You know what I mean? This guy back here, behind the scenes over here, once again, I mean, top of the game, and just however it works out, it does. You know what I mean? And we've gotten past the avenues of like, oh my God, it didn't work. It didn't work. Instead, we're just like, when it does work, we know that it's the best that it can be.
But you have to have fertile ground, George. You have to have fertile ground to be able to plant the plant.
I agree.
And what Platinum has done on so many levels, and I'm sure Leslie would agree with this, is give the soil for people to really plant their roots, to grow, to become the complete flower, if you will, that they were meant to be.
And that's and the thing is in the bigger picture of that, we're all growing something.
Yeah.
We're all growing the same thing. So we have now a bunch of really good farmers that are actually working on the same thing. And that's the bigger part of this, is that we I don't
we
take
trust
I don't
you guys
I,
too. 'Cause
I don't
in such
I don't
a short
take
time you've gotten us to where we are, and it's like, holy shit. Okay, if we keep doing this, oh my gosh, look at what they're doing now. Look at what's going on now.
I've sat in meetings with people, even one, recently, but there's a lot of hype. You know what I mean? You got the guys that are hyping up and hyping this and hyping, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And I don't think that we've ever really hyped anything that we weren't 100% sure. Most of them we're not 100% sure. To be honest with you. But I think we hype it up because we know the team that's with us. You know what I mean?
What that tells me? That tells me that when you, like Janet said, you've got the fertile ground, you start putting the people in place that can make those things
First of all, we
grow.
don't put the people in place.
They put themselves in place, right?
They
show up.
I think this is a great one. You build it, they will come.
It's true.
Yep.
It's true. I have an
It-
amazing team.
Seriously, I think that's because we don't put anybody in place, because I still don't know where Janet is. I don't know. There's no place because literally, just like I came out of the wall, that's how Janet does. You could be in a meeting. You haven't seen that yet, but you will. We don't put anybody in a place because they may not be there long. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, they may be doing this and this and this. And we like to find out what people are capable of and then kind of give them that direction.
Isn't that our job as leaders?
It is.
Is to
But we sometimes forget about that when you get into
right?
Without a doubt.
when you get into that
grow other
corporate
leaders.
side of things. Yes, absolutely.
But even if you don't like it, you still allow us all to have a voice,
yeah,
which is huge.
yeah,
You know?
it is.
She
I want to
knows
hear
there's
it.
many times when I've called her and I'm like, "Fucking brought this up," and then they said da da da, you know, and she's like, "Well, that's what happened. It's fine. I'm gonna stick it out. It's fine. I know it'll turn out. I'm just venting right now. It's fine. You know."
I do listen,
But it
and
does,
everything
it
that you're
works
saying,
out.
I do the same thing with Cody. I sit in the same room, and Janet being, next to my office, she gets everything.
Yeah.
She gets everything. She says that's why I'm not moving my office because you don't want anybody else but me sitting right here. But that's that's the thing, and so, I don't know how we do this every time we're on this. It's like This is Mother's Day, by the way. Welcome back, everybody. This is PV Unfiltered, #1 cannabis podcast, and it's Mother's Day.
Show my cannabis.
No, so once again, this isn't just about you. We have Janet here.
You keep saying
you know
that.
What I mean?
You keep saying that. That's
because
little.
I think
The thing is, I just sit in my little room
I
too
kinda
and
feel like
don't
it's-
do much.
No.
It's kind of like a Father's Day podcast.
Do you think?
We'll do that.
But I really do want to hear your story. I really do want to hear your story because
think
you
we're-
were a mom.
Well,
you were
I
a
don't.
mom.
I don't think we're done with your story because
No,
I have a question about what did you learn from your mom? How did she teach you to be the woman you are?
Well, I do have a theory about genes. So, there's nature and there's nurture.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when you have nature and you're planted and you come out of the womb, you have a certain temperament. And what moms do is they bend you to their will and to make you grow strong and straight. Mm-hmm. So I'm 5th generation Californian from Hardy pioneer stock. Mm-hmm. My dad's from Hell's Kitchen, New York. And so I have this going on. The thing my mom gave me was the ability to speak my mind and be honest.
In a very different way, too.
And to be honest, I have reached a stage in my life where I totally understand what it is to have wisdom and to have knowledge, and to just not care about the bullshit. And that's a
gift.
It's a double-edged sword. Let me tell you, because my daughter has that gift, only she has it in a very compassionate, tactful way. And I look at her every day and go, I wish I had it. I wish I had that tact.
But how great is it that she does have that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So that's her taking you and your generations and then furthering it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Instead of degrading it, she's adding her little spice
to
and
it.
her kids are going to get the same thing.
And it's the same, I'm sure, nature and nurture with you and your children. What the Xerox machine sort of lays down a certain pattern.
It lays down a pattern, but you don't want it to be copycat.
No,
right?
God, no. I worked
And
real
my
hard
kids-
not to do that.
Yeah,
Which is really weird because as I'm getting older now, I
Yes.
do so many things and I stop myself and I go, oh my God,
It's
my mom
her.
would have said that.
It's her.
My mom was doing that. I swear to you, my mom would say the same thing to people right now. And then it gets in my head and I'm just like, how am I losing myself as a person? Am I now becoming my mother? Is this okay? Is
Wait, you're
this
going to
not
look down at
okay?
your hands one day and they're going to be your mom's hands. You're going to look in the mirror and you go, oh God, there she is.
But it's not,
But that's a
bad
good
act
thing.
to follow.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, thanks for that, honey.
No.
Thanks for that.
But I think also, there's that level where you have to define, is this about being a woman or is this that's another tough part that you have as a woman is when you're doing something under belief, are people taking this as, oh, this is because she's a woman? Mm-hmm. That's that's another tough side of what you
up
have to
here,
do.
It's always like, oh, okay, now you're being a bitch, Janet.
Right.
Okay, now.
But are you being are you being a bitch because you're trying to prove a point as a woman, or trying to prove a point as who you are as a person? You know what I mean?
It comes off no matter what. I think many times, you know, when you're talking to a man, it could be somebody at the grocery store. It doesn't really matter. And I'll say, what do you mean you don't have that kind of chocolate chip? You always had that chocolate chip. And then I think to myself, oh, okay, there you go. He's looking at it like, oh God, lady, you're just being bitch.
Right.
Right.
So yeah.
When you're just asking for a simple standard. Whereas if a guy went in and said, what do you mean you don't have chocolate chip? He'd be like, hey, buddy, I don't know. We don't have chocolate chip. You walk away and he's like, what a bitch. I don't have your ice cream. Lady, go for the White Claw.
Yeah. So there you go.
There you go. So what do you want to know?
Wait a second. So once again, we're back on the thing, what you miss about, you know, not having her here and whatnot.
Yeah.
But then taking it another step further is, as it is Mother's Day, how proud you are of her.
Oh my God.
Because I know a lot,
my God.
you know, I mean, in what she does. And, and sometimes doing things that don't generate a lot of income is okay. And I know that she's been very diligent about giving back and being a part of that
community.
Oh, wherever she's at.
What she did, I mean, I can see me in her. She is now, she started out with AmeriCorps, and I mean, what do you do? She's got a master's degree, for God's sakes, you know, in political science. And what do you do in Laramie? So she went ahead, she got a job with AmeriCorps and Feeding Laramie Valley, and she did community gardens and all that sort of thing. And now, my gosh, she's running a whole program for the state of Wyoming. And she's like, you know, Mom, I really want to get to know this person because they work for the governor. And I think that what that'll do is I can get hooked into Washington, D.C., which is me. So she's already got the chessboard moving in her head. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, all right.
Isn't it interesting how I think women think, like a lot of men, and not to say that women are better and men are not.
I'm just sitting over here, so.
But I think that thought process is how women think. If I met that person, I could change this in a better way.
Right.
Where a lot of guys will think, if I met that person, I'm going to rise higher. Right? In the corporate world. Right? Or the government world. If I met that person, it's going to get me that much further. Where most women, I think if I met that person, if I did that, I could do this, and that's going to better our community.
Right, and
it's a game of chess.
In the way that your daughter
she's looking at where she can get grants, where she can get money, and how much she can produce. Because I was just stunned. In Laramie's a little town. I mean, it's 25,000 people or something.
She's going to know them all.
At Walmart, trust me, that they feed something like 1,500 kids during the summer for a school lunch program.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's that many kids who need food.
Yeah.
There's that many kids who need food. You know, 1,000 kids need food.
Yeah.
In a small town like that. I mean, that does not say a lot for our government. Really, you know, that they have community gardens and are taking in, you know, grant money and all this kind of stuff to feed people. Yeah.
So for some reason, this has become like a mother-daughter thing. Mm-hmm. But you have a son.
I do.
Yeah. So
I have 12
guess what? That still makes you a mother. Even though it's not a daughter, it still makes you a mother.
It does. I have the best child.
So I've been fortunate.
She does.
I've been fortunate to meet him and whatnot. And I love when you meet somebody's kid, as much as some people don't want to hear it, it's an extension of who they are.
Absolutely.
And so trust me, some people don't want to say that. But I'm proud to say that I am, other than the phone call that Tommy got from Maddie about the podcast. But yeah, you can see immediately when somebody has respect, you know, and so I want to hear a little bit about your story as a mommy and having a son, and you know,
mom,
and being a single mom, and
Pardon me, I'm gonna cry already. Just kidding.
well, this is it. Listen, this is your time. This is a Mother's Day. I know we take this. We've gone, you know, literally every other direction, but I keep bringing it back to the fact that this is about Mother's Day. That's what this podcast is about. So we have to
Bring it back.
Yeah, I got to keep. I'm the herder.
Yeah,
the herder.
yeah.
So I'm here to herd everybody
He's
back
got the
because
cattle prod.
Yeah, because this is what it's about. It's you're a mom, and this is a proud time and moment for that. And you have your son, and you're raising him, and it's like
And you're in the cannabis industry.
And you're in the cannabis industry.
Let's talk about that. I love that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. So
Yeah. I didn't start out to be, a single mom, obviously. I waited a long time in my marriage before I even had a child. And it's kind of funny because he has been the person to make me who I am, aside from my mom.
Yeah.
But how amazing and understanding he is, just growing. I learned so much from him,
right?
And his patience and his tolerance and the way he is with people. So I think my mom taught me about business. My family taught me about being strong, and my son teaches me how to be with people.
Yeah.
Which I hate crying so much. I never used
No,
to
you
cry
don't.
as much
You love
as I
it.
do now. But
You're a
oh my
crybaby.
gosh, totally.
and he's always
but
been
this is great because this is really showing how much this is to you as a mom. You know what I mean? Listen, I've been in meetings with you. You don't cry like this.
No.
No. But this is something.
No,
this
that's
is
totally different. When it comes
Exactly.
to business, I'm very
That's what I'm saying.
Even
but
someone said downstairs, nobody wants to push you. Everybody, kind of has that.
and
little,
and another good attribute of why you're here. But this is about being a mother, and you take that obviously so big that it instantly is emotional. I can do this because even as a father, and I'm the same way. This isn't about me, but I'm the same way when it comes to my kids and being proud and talking about, I can well up instantly if I start to really think on that level, which I do a lot, but this isn't about me. It's about you guys being mothers. And that's what this podcast is about, is to be proud of the fact, regardless of being a single mom and everything else, but to hear and understand that there's so much love and there's so much understanding and the resilience that kids have with all the situations, but yet can still comfort their mom and still be there. But then also, for my whole life, I've called Cody Kodad. That's always been the thing, because it's like, I always say, like, wow, like, where did this kid come from? Because he's like so much further ahead than me in a lot of ways, and has wisdom that I don't know where it comes from.
Yeah.
But there's been times, trust me, that, going through divorce and all this stuff, and I know what you're feeling, because it's like you get that, like, wow, like, how did they get so big? Not big in stature, but just big in everything. You know what I mean?
Well, there's
to
that
be able
with
to
her son too.
What's that?
There's that with her
Oh,
son
I trust
too.
me. I know. I know. He's a tiny kid. But what I get at is,
for a few years I was worried, and I would say to him, God, I don't know what I'm going to do when you are older. What the hell are you?
And you still don't.
Do? But now it's like I finally have so much respect for him,
right?
Because he's really finding his way, and he's become such a good person,
right? And why do you think that is?
He's got great surroundings. I mean, the women that have supported him are amazing,
Right, so. But this is what I'm getting at, is this, as a mother,
right?
That's why you're crying, not because he's in jail, but because of the person that he's becoming.
Yeah,
it's a good kid.
Right.
It's a good
Even
kid.
during this time,
and he
of
doesn't
being
listen,
at home
Leslie.
with
He doesn't
COVID.
get that way. He doesn't get that way by waking up in the morning and playing games.
True. 100%.
Right.
100%.
And so it's not just you. I mean, the majority is you, but it's the fact that there's like this huge foundation around him that's not going to let him fail.
Absolutely.
And is more important to pay attention to him and his needs and who he is and how he's going to be versus just kind of going, here, take this and go do this. You know what I mean? And that's why I want to say where the wisdom comes in, and I'm sure Janet can vouch for this, is don't worry about what your life is going to be about when he gets married and does all this stuff. I think there was a time where my insecurities allowed me to think about stuff like that. You know what I mean? And then I really understood, like, you know what? I'm now. And with my kids and with everything that's going, I'm not going to worry about what's happening, you know, down the road. I'm going to worry about my now. You know what I mean? And that was the biggest change for me. Because I you know, at one point I was like, fuck, what am I going to do this? What am I going to do this? You know, and I'm in business with my son and I'm in business with my other kids and whatnot. And it's like, I'm just so grateful on that level that now, you know, I have grandkids and we live next door to each other. And I could worry about 5 years from now of like not living next door to, you know, all these things, but I don't. You know what? I get up in the morning, I go over, high five with the grandkids, hang out for a little bit, go to work, and if you call this work, and do this shit, and you know what I mean? And so that's kind of if I gave you advice on that, not being a mother, but being a father, it would be don't worry about the future because you'll lose this stuff. Yes.
Yeah.
To lose today.
Yeah.
I think he's proven now during, you know, what's going on in the world that I can trust that, you know, and I can just let that go because, I mean, he texts me about 2 or 3 times throughout the day to ask me, how are you doing? How was your day? How's everything at work? You know, and it's so
huge.
funny because sometimes it's like, I can't get back to him for a couple hours and I feel really bad that I haven't responded, but
he gets it.
He totally does.
Right.
You know, and it's just the fact that he even takes the step to care about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
But Leslie,
He's
look,
super proud of
look
her.
at you've got. I mean, you have such a strong family around you that it just generates down.
absolutely.
I mean, it does. It generates down. He's got a strong family around him, and that's just a wonderful thing. Wonderful thing.
He's very loved. You know,
Yes.
she's a single mom, but he's very loved.
Yeah.
You know, from all of us.
And you can
He
see
always
it when you
has
meet him.
been, right?
Yeah.
So he's really grounded and he's super proud of what she does. Super proud.
And once again, like you said, being in cannabis.
Being
You know, I mean, this
cannabis,
is
talk about that because
this is a tough transition. You know, not just for us or for you, but it's for our siblings. It's for the younger kids, and it's like, you know, you got to understand. Yeah, I can remember back in the day. Hey, so what does your dad do for work? My dad's an electrician.
right.
Oh, cool. All right. What does your dad do for work? He grows pot.
Right.
Yeah, that doesn't fly, you know, 10 years ago.
Right.
when I opened my
Nowadays-
delivery service, I had to tell him to tell kids at school that I delivered flowers.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
just
now,
tell
guess
them
what?
I deliver flowers. Please
Guess
don't
what?
tell them that I
Because-
sell weed.
Right. Because I can tell you, like even from my experience, like if that were my dad and I was in school and, you know, imagine being 14, 15 years old and going, oh, what does your dad do? Oh, fuck, I'd make something up.
He's in the mafia.
No, I mean, to tell somebody that my dad grew pot, you know, at that time, it would literally ruin everything that you had built in friendships and everything else. So I would have made something up. You know what I mean? But guess what? Nowadays, when your son is sitting there and somebody says, "Oh, what does your mom do?" Oh, you know what she does? She works in the cannabis industry. She does this. Fuck you.
She
You know what I
makes
mean?
edibles.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, what
Yeah,
does your
like,
dad
what's
do?
that?
What does your mom do? You know what I mean? It's now, it's getting to be more and more socially accepted to the point where they're proud to say,
Absolutely.
oh yeah, this is what my mom does. This is what my dad does. You know, like that, that's, So how great is that? Because
He has more PV swag than you do.
Well,
I guarantee he does, because I never get the shit.
well, I
get stuff. I learn from people that have it. Like, I see it posted somewhere, and it's like, I didn't even know we had that.
Yeah.
I think
That's how I get it.
I think it's important that Leslie at least touches on how she got into the cannabis industry, because it plays on to how Maximus has grown up in it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it didn't start until he was 7.
With your
you know,
dad.
before that, I mean, I never smoked around him, never talked about it. You know, it just wasn't part of anything that he was around. It was always, you know, I would go out into the back shed and, you know, come back in, and he was
find
already
out now.
sleeping, and, you know, yeah, she has no idea. He was already sleeping, you know, that type of stuff. And I mean, I do remember a couple times when, you know, he would wake up in the middle of the night, and, you know, I wake up and flip on the light, and he looks at me, Mommy, why are your eyes so red? And I'm like, oh shit, I smoked. Honey, I just woke up, you know, I'm like going through no, tell me about you. Why are you up? You know, it's like, how do I tell him that it's because I smoked weed, you know? Because at that time when he was growing up, I mean, for myself, it was everybody around us, you know, living in Temecula, you drink wine. That's what you do. You don't smoke weed, you know?
But that's okay.
Right, absolutely.
I don't drink wine.
But yet it just wasn't something that was part of, you know, how my husband and I at the time, you know, did anything. You know, we weren't, he was a drinker, but I wasn't a drinker, but it wasn't a huge thing for us, you know. But having Maximus now be around me, and I mean, it's on my kitchen table. You know, I consume on a regular. He sees me consume. He sees me vape, dab, you know, smoke out of a bong, any of that.
Oh, you're a horrible mom.
I know. And
believe that?
I know. And
Jesus.
the best part
All
about
right, that's it. This podcast is over.
The best part about it is the funny thing, he'll still come to me and he'll go, gosh, you know, I mean, I see these people in like movies and TV and the way that they act, you know, I'm so glad that you don't act like that kind of stoner mom. And I'm like, are they hitting different shit than I am? Because like, what are they smoking? Is it better than me? Like,
I think it's just the perception that's put out still in the media and a lot of that stuff. I mean, you know, it's like this is what bothers me in a lot of different ways. And I'm paying attention to a lot of this stuff. I stopped watching the news, to be honest with you. Probably about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I stopped. I don't pay attention to anything that's going on. I don't watch the stats or anything that's going on. But you know, I was watching TV the other night, and there was a clothing store in New York that's been 42 years in business in New York, and it became this big thing because he said, you know what, I'm done. I'm opening my doors. I don't care what anybody says. And, everybody went nuts. This was on CNN. It was on Fox. It was everywhere, this guy. If you see him, he's got the big eyebrows, you know, which I thought was badass, to be honest with you. And, Tom, if you can pull that guy up, you'll know what I mean. And he should go on there, because I'm super proud of this guy, to be honest with you. And I think he said he's early 80s.
He was a tailor. Wasn't
somewhere
he a
there.
tailor?
Yes.
Yeah.
40-something years in New York. And he said, how the hell is every liquor store in town open where they could go in and touch and feel and do all this stuff and all these things going on and get the alcohol and do all this? And after 40-something years, I can't have my doors open, have people walk through and still practice social distancing, still doing all the right things, but I can't do this? He said, no, my doors are open. The police came, and he said, you know, look at, my doors are open. If somebody wants to walk into my store, they're more than welcome. These are the rules. They're posted right there. If somebody wants to buy something from my store, absolutely welcome. That's how this is. And they said, you know, well, what did the police say? Well, they said, you're a retired vet, correct? Yes, I am. Thank you for your service. And he said, thank you for your service.
That's it.
Have a great day.
As it should be.
And that's exactly how it should be.
It should be.
It's like he said, if you choose to not walk in my store, that's your business. You know, if you don't want to come into my store, I understand. But my doors are open for somebody that does, and we will do the things that we need to do. But don't think walking into a liquor store and rummaging through, you know, the chips and everything else and grabbing your bottles of alcohol that everybody's touched and done all this stuff and walking out the door, is that practicing anything? No. So people are, as I've known this was going to happen, people are getting to that point now where they're like, okay, enough. If you're closing stuff down, close it down. If you're not, then don't pick and choose. And how does alcohol become something that is essential? Right. And then in the same sense, watching CNN, they're showing the numbers going up in alcohol sales, and whatnot, and it was on Fox too. I'm just saying, like it's one of those things. Like
it's true.
It is the truth, and it's
I
like
think they're doing medical studies to show how alcohol improves your health and your life.
Exactly.
But they're doing medical studies for cannabis. So why is alcohol even on the spectrum to
just got off a phone conference with the people from Niomedic, which is something that's up and coming for Platinum Vape, and they've done these huge studies. We're now becoming a part of as we go along. Hopefully, we lock this down with them out of Israel. The studies have been done, and now we're looking at bringing something here, and it's some really, really big stuff. And this is what's happening in the cannabis world during COVID versus just trying to sustain your life by drinking a bottle of booze and calling it a day. So, I mean, listen,
tell the veteran who can't get a hold of his cannabis that it's not essential.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
The one who's suffering or the cancer patient or any of that. It's essential.
Well, and you.
I'm not. This is not. First of all, I'm not against drinking.
Oh no.
You guys saw that in this happy hour we had a few weeks ago. Okay, I'm not against it. I'm still hurting from it. But I mean,
so's Adam.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that in moderation. And even right now, like I'm trying to bring that a little bit more into the visual of him, so it's not so, oh my gosh, my dad who was a binge drinker who passed away, or anybody else in our family or that we know that he's been around who's had a negative experience. It's like, why can't it get back to that point where we socially sit around and have a glass of wine or have a joint or something? Why do we have to socially sit around and get shit-faced or get so smoked out that we're all passed out? Why can't we
That'll never go away.
Do it in moderation?
Listen, that's like telling me to eat in moderation, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
There's no, that will never go away. If that's the drive, to get everybody to go to moderation, then you need to go to North Korea.
Right. Well, I mean,
you know what I mean? I mean,
that's in excess, but at least bringing that into his eyes as a child and showing him that you can have.
That's what you're doing. That's what you're doing, and there's nothing, and that's why it's like people. There will be people that are like, I can't believe she leaves shit on the table, and I can't believe this and that. And at a certain point, that's between you and your kids. Mm-hmm. To understand when that timeline comes into play, that you can leave something, you can leave a bottle of wine, vodka, anything else, but all of a sudden you leave a joint, and you're the worst person in the world.
I want to speak to that because I get asked that all the time about my grandkids, and Leslie got into the business and I got into the business because we dosed my husband through end-stage cancer. Yeah. He was diagnosed and gone in 3 months. So it was not an easy ride. And so we were bringing product into the house and we had a small grandson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so from day one, we educated him. This is his medicine. This is, right? So it's been that evolution in him seeing from medicine to recreational use to everything. And he knew early on, I remember one day I walked in and he came walking through the house and he was eating some gummies. And I went like this and he goes, don't worry, they're not medicated. And he was like 9. And I'm like, okay, Yeah. And he's educated me, right? He's educated me that it's okay to be around it because my parent is responsible.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, and
it's when there's an irresponsible parent, it doesn't matter if it's alcohol, cannabis, firearms, that's where you have problems.
Exactly.
Right? And so, he's funny because he was over last weekend and we talked about cannabis use. We talk about it a lot, right? And he says
extremely important, especially at his stage in life. Right. Making
12.
those decisions and
he's 12. And so I asked him, I said, how do you feel about it? And he goes, I am so not interested in it because
But you know what?
Around it all the time.
Yeah, and there's a lot of truth to that, but there will be a point when he is. And that's that shift where you as a parent got to go, okay.
Let's have the conversation.
Well, it's not, no, wait a second.
So much,
It's not having the conversation. That conversation's already taken place. Right. The reality is now is like, okay, I have to, as a parent, make a decision. Do I medicate with my son for the first time, or do I step back and say, and if you have those channels are clear that he has that security in talking to you about it and understanding it, and just to say, hey, you know what, I want to try this. Now you're in that position where you go, oh, fuck, do I sit down and smoke a joint with him? Or do I let him experience that with a friend or himself, you know, whatever it is? That's the conversation that takes place, but not with him. It's with yourself. And that, you know, that back in the day would be like, oh, it's a bad mom. Oh, it's a bad dad.
She used to tell us that when my sister and I were growing up, 80s, 90s, you know, she always said, if there is something that you want to know about and you need me to help you in any way, let me know. Whether it's religion, whether it's drugs, whether it's sex, whether it's this, that, or the other. It was always a very open, come to me and let me be your conduit to that information. I can help you. Nowadays, we have so much internet and this and that, but it really was this open platform of, if you want to go smoke some weed, we'll find some weed, we'll smoke some weed together. I'll show you what it's like, da-da-da. Now, I would never have taken that approach, but at least I knew that
it was available.
Right. And that she didn't have this
huge security,
you know, door slam in your face. You did what? Da, 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 you know? And it's funny.
I had those moments though too.
True. But now it comes all the way around where, like, I got busted by my son on his birthday for, like, he had a birthday party, right? And we had kids over and, you know, they were staying over and the whole thing. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to have my best friend come over, you know, and who he's been around Maximus for the last few years, you know, and like a brother figure to him, you know, and I'm like, come on, help me field this sleepover. I've never done this before. Like, I got all these, you know, preteen boys in my house. I can't handle this shit. Like, normally I'm like smoking bong loads, like going, kids, get away, you know, like let me deal with this. And he's like, no, it's okay. We'll get the snacks. I'll come over. We'll do the thing, you know, and then we'll set up the Netflix for the kids and they'll be great. And I'm like, okay. So get over, set up the snacks, do the whole thing. And all the kids are, you know, getting together, doing their whole thing. They don't even care about us.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, well, let's go sneak off into my room then. Let's go get lit. Like, the kids are taken care of. Like, let's go do our own thing, you know? So we go back there and I'm like, okay, let's just hit our pens first, right? So we're hitting our pens, we're blowing it out in the window, you know? And these kids are they all have cell phones. They all, you know, most of them lived in the complex that we, you know, live in. So it's not like their parents are not within 30 feet, you know, out the next door or whatever. So, yeah, we're in the back and I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, he hasn't said anything. They're all doing their thing, you know? And then all of a sudden I'm like, I'm going to take a dab, you know, I'm going to push the limits, right? So I set the whole thing up, you know, no more than like a couple minutes later, he comes knocking on the door. And I like crack the door and he's like, Mom, are you smoking weed back here? I swear to you, I can smell it. And my friends are saying something about it. Are you smoking? And I'm like, no. Oh my God. Oh, of course not.
You're going to be cutting this out, Tommy.
Then all of a sudden, my timer goes off for my dab and it's like beep, 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 beep. And he goes,
yep.
To take a dab. You were smoking. You were pre-smoking before you're smoking. And I know you're smoking. I have friends out here. Okay, be a little more responsible. And he turns around and walks away. And I'm like,
God damn, you felt about this tall.
I did. I was like, you had one job, throw a party and not smoke weed. And I couldn't do it. No. You know? But he's so cool that he's like, it's fine. I got it. I'll take care of it. You know, I'll go tell my friends, you know, it was the neighbor and it just blew in the window, you know, like covering for his mom.
You've gotten busted so many times.
Yeah, even her. I moved back in with her
wait a second, because this is a question that I have to ask. You can't because she's not here. We should have had her on Zoom, to be honest with you.
It's true.
But what's one thing, if there is, what's one thing that your mom that you did doesn't know or does know but doesn't know that you did? Like, is there that one?
Oh, shit.
Is there anything you could tell your mom that you didn't tell her? It doesn't matter when.
Well, it's been a couple years now. Okay.
Shit, I was thinking it would be like
But
Like, man, here
15,
we go.
20 years.
no, I didn't get into my prime until a few years ago.
Okay.
Before then, I was just running amok. No, a few years ago, she didn't know this was when I was first doing my delivery business, and made some deals and did some things. And she had no idea that I was like packing up pounds of marijuana and pounds of shatter and things like that in her kitchen while she was at work. And then she would come home and be like, how was your day? I'm like, oh, it was great.
So is she finding out about this right now? Or
yes, right now.
She did.
I came home that one time and there was
Oh, what?
good
Yeah.
shit.
and then I just dove in and started helping.
Yeah. No, there was
just to
one
get
time
'em
she
out.
came home actually, and I can't remember what we were doing.
Shatter.
Yeah, we were packaging up
Shatter.
shatter, and she's like, what are you guys doing? And I was like, oh, just for the delivery service, right? And she's like, oh, let me help you. And like starts folding things and putting labels on stuff, And Adam, who's downstairs, he's like,
He's my
"Dude,
other
your
child.
mom is
Yeah.
freaking helping us right now." And I'm like, I don't give a shit. It's free labor. She said,
So she did know. But is there anything, there's always like that one thing that you go, you never told her. And there probably is. She's just not going to say. But, maybe
I
that
don't
time
think
is
so,
right.
Because if I haven't told her, then she found out. And when she found things out, it wasn't like I went, oh my God, I'm busted. I made up something to where I
Right.
was so confident about it that it was like, yeah, I'm doing this. Absolutely, But yeah, she used to tell me all the time, the last few years when I had lived with her and told me, don't smoke in the house. Don't smoke. I'm like, I'm not smoking in the house. And then I got this, like the door is open. I got the blow dryer trying to get it out the window,
So you have to understand that her father, her biological father, right, used to get up and wake and bake.
Yeah.
Right. And after having two little ones and raising them, and he was stoned all the time, like all the time. And we'd go to work stoned, and
Yeah, I mean,
back
so,
then-
and that
Okay,
take
and
that take,
was a
but that
long
take
time ago.
It,
right?
Well, it doesn't matter if it's a long time ago or tomorrow.
No, it
you know what I
does.
mean? But that takes, like you said, moderation, and no matter where you're at, whether it's alcohol or cigarettes or
Right.
weed or anything that goes on, there's always going to be the person or the people that take it way out.
Of course.
And it makes it look so bad. And if you're just and if you're sitting on your porch enjoying a glass of wine, smoking a joint, and that's what you're doing, the people that have been affected by those people look at you as the biggest piece of shit around.
Right.
If your family, if you come from a family of alcoholics, or you have that knowledge, or and this and that person that has had such a a traumatic life from that, of having a dad or mom that's an alcoholic and all that, they see a person having a beer or having a glass of wine as like, oh, you're a fucking alcoholic. Mm-hmm. Like there's just such a big broad scale, but it gets narrowed down really, really fast. And the same thing goes for, like you're talking about with the ex-husband or her father.
But my only point with it really was that because of that, there's not a whole lot she could hide from me.
Oh no, I get that.
Yeah.
I get
And
that.
still,
Yeah.
I
Like,
have to give
but
my
I-
mom a lot
I've
of
been there-
credit for
been
how
there, seen it
far
all.
she's come from that negative stigma being in her face every day. Same
Right.
thing with my grandparents and my sister.
Right.
Because those three, which are my core three support system, my sister, my mom, and my grandparents, they're the ones who I look to for acceptance all the time.
Right.
And to be a full-blown stoner, I don't mind the word. I don't care. I'm a stoner. I love it. It's great because to me, I get the best benefits out of it.
Right.
And I've learned how to get the best benefits out of it. And we have all worked really hard to break the stigma of what my biological father put in front of all of us.
That's exactly the
And
point
that's
that I was
the best
making.
thing to take
Yep.
away from it is to go, you know what? He put the negative spin on it. Let's put a positive spin on it
Yeah.
and at least still figure out how it can either fit or not fit in our lives. And it's fit in greatly, I mean, even with my brother-in-law and what he's experiencing with his, some people come off alcohol, some people come off opioids, some people, come off a life and go, shit, I just need a joint, and for my family, I've been able to bring them that exposure with THC, CBD, you know, all these different things. And, you know, when my mom's saying, hey, I'm in pain, or my grandparents or this or that, and I can say, oh, well, let me give you a little bit of education and hope you can find this or da-da-da. And it's great to have that now. But there still is a lot of people that don't quite understand it. And it's really up to us to break that stigma. And even this podcast, even being able to be out in the world.
What is cannabis doing for you?
What is cannabis doing for you?
Providing me an amazing, essential job.
Right?
But
I mean,
I think it's provided
it's
me
sanity,
a voice for myself just as an adult woman. You know, I mean, I made a complete career for 15 and a half years as a hairdresser.
Right.
Professional. I made great money. You know, I had a huge clientele, worked at some of the best salons, you know,
And I can't get a haircut.
The Inland Empire,
I can.
you know.
I get one tomorrow.
And, right. And so it's just, you know, coming from doing all of that and going, okay, now what do I do? How do I again feel like I'm making a difference in the world and feel like I'm contributing something? And, you know, if it wasn't for my mom giving me that first loan to, you know, deliver weed, you know, then I wouldn't have met the people that I did to make it here.
Right.
And it's such a cool place to be. It's every single day. I look forward to Mondays. I said this to, you know, Matt the other day. I said, I look forward to Mondays more than I do Fridays. Because Monday, it's such a dictation to how the rest of your week is going to go. And Friday, Saturday, Sunday is just it's just the weekend, you know. But Monday is where I feel like I make the most impact, you know, or the rest of the week.
Right. Wow.
It has flown by.
Fuck, we taken this thing in like,
I know. No,
I don't even know how many different.
Do you want my story?
Different
No, we didn't
directions.
even get the full.
I know.
I know it's not about me.
5 minutes.
I know.
We need
I know
5
it's not
minutes.
about me. But do you want my story?
Yeah.
When she calls me in a panic up in Northern California, I'm stoned as fuck, Leslie. What do I do? And I'm sitting there trimming weed. And
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God.
You
oh
can
my
get
God, my
most of
mom's
that,
high
huh?
right
I gotta
now.
go.
You know?
No, I just want to say that, you know, my story isn't what matters, except that I've created this.
Yeah.
You know, and so,
I think you're wrong, but
so-
that's okay.
You know, I mean, it only matters in the sense that that what is here for Mother's Day, it's this bond, and it's this, you know, like the bond I have with my mother and all the women in our family, and we're all strong. And I mean, Leslie's a pioneer. I'm a pioneer. You know, I'm in I'm in an industry that is very male dominated.
But you've been a pioneer. This isn't like, you know, I'm a pioneer. You know, as a woman in business, mother, you know, all these things that, you know, that equates out to being a pioneer. You know what I mean?
She always gives it 100%, 110%.
Right. And that's the spirit of it, is that you're looking at it, you know, as she's a pioneer because she's in cannabis. And yes, that's true. But, you know, there's levels of getting to these stages where you are more of a pioneer for things that you selflessly do versus, you know, oh, I'm a woman in cannabis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's great that you can sit back and say it like that. But the truth is that she wouldn't be a pioneer if you weren't.
Yeah.
Right. No, I agree with that.
And that's how that's how a lot of things go. Is, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're in sports or if you know, whatever it is, you'll find that somebody in that family made a decision that, you know, whether it was you, your mom, your grandma, you know, down the road, that this is how we're going to do things. And each level, each generation becomes more of that. And they're always pioneering, if that's a word, to become better, not in a way of like, oh, that sucked, but just to become better at it, better with it, better, you know, as a person through that. And that's how you get down the road, you know, in life, is by that. It's not by being on welfare and just continuing that chain. You know what I mean?
Right.
Welfare is a great support system, you know, when it's needed.
Right. But it's not meant to be a way of life.
No, it's welfare is not a job.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
right.
You know, it's funny. I can tell you, close to me, I had a situation once with even my own sister, because I was in a time in my life where I used, state assistance for
and that's what it's there for.
And I had so much negativity come across from her. And I finally had to sit down and talk to her one day and go, hey, I'm not the same as everybody else.
Right.
That you have in this picture of, oh my gosh, this is what it takes to be on welfare or state assistance or this or that. For me, it was, I paid into it for many years. Yeah. I'm using it right now. It's not a permanent stay in my life. And it's there for assistance.
Exactly.
So that's all it's doing is
assisting. This is the
me,
problem that you have with stuff like this is I'm not against it. You know what I mean? I'm all for it. I'm all for people getting help, and I'm all for states helping people.
But let's find a way to get them off it.
Well, I mean, that the whole idea is, like you said, it's like, hey, you know what? This has happened. You couldn't even begin to describe how you get to a position like that.
Absolutely.
But if you're there, that's what's there for help. You know what I mean? It's a lifeline. It's like you're climbing a hill. You need that rope just to get to that next level, or you drop down. You know, I mean, there's so many analogies you can use. The problem is we allow it to become a lifestyle for people versus a lifeline. And so listen, there's nothing wrong with, some people are fortunate to have families that are fortunate enough to be able to continue to help, in that family dynamic. Some people aren't. Some people don't have the financial ability to do that. And I get it.
And the funny thing is I could have used my family.
Yeah, but sometimes it's like,
it was like, nope, you don't use your family right now. You need to use this because you need to be the one to change your shit around.
Right. And then there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And the downside is that, it sucks that your sister was a part of that feeling that you had. It sounds like you addressed that, and things have, obviously are different in that way. But reality is that, that's what that's there for. You shouldn't feel bad. If you're doing it 2 years down the road, you should feel like shit.
Absolutely.
Because I'll be honest with you, even in the worst of economies, there's plenty of room for jobs and the growth inside of anything, but that's a whole different.
And it's a struggle mentally to get off of it when you're already on it, because you really do think, well, God, what am I going to do next month?
Right.
And it's like, you'll be fine. You'll be fine because you'll figure it out.
Right.
You will be fine. But to sit there and say, well, I can't do this because of this, you're going to hold yourself back forever.
Yeah.
And then you always will be just saying, this is my budget for food, or this is my budget for this. It's like, why can't your budget be everything?
And I've said the whole time, this is not about you. Yep. So guess what? It is. But look what you did. Like, this is,
I know.
This is about you. It's just not directly. So
I know.
So we have to get the story.
So I want to tell the story. So
you keep taking this off the way, buddy.
Yeah, no, I don't. But what part of my story do you want to know? Because I'm all.
I mean, this is
I'm
where
the
I
oldest
step
one in the room.
Okay, this is where I step in to what does cannabis do for you, and that's what this podcast is about.
Good.
This is a Mother's Day podcast, but also, and I can see that somebody's rallied up some gifts here. See these bags over here, but the story is it's we know who you are as a mom and who you are as a person, and anybody that's spent 5 minutes with you can get that and gather it. But the question is, as far as your story, we could spend 2 hours,
right.
You know what I mean,
Sure.
talking stories.
Sure.
But the question is as I always ask, is what is cannabis doing for you? Like how did you get into cannabis?
Okay. Really good question. And with that segue, I'm going to answer that. So we touched on that a little earlier. My late husband, was diagnosed with cancer in 2014. And he was very late stage. So he never even had the opportunity to start any kind of cancer treatment,
right.
Even though he was with the best doctors. But I had to go do a trade show for our company. So I was already working with him in the company. I was sort of more the face. He was the operations. So I had a trade show to do in Chicago, and I called Leslie and I said, your dad needs help. He needs to get a medical card. I know he's got cancer again.
So sorry, before that,
Yeah.
Were you a consumer? How long?
No.
You know?
At the time, I was not, because of what I had gone through with my first husband.
Okay.
I was 35 years. Don't touch it. I mean, I'll tell you, this is really the honest truth, and it's funny. But there was a special or a documentary that kept coming up on cable TV called Marijuana Miracle Cure. Have you seen that one? It's amazing. It's like a 4-part series, and I would late at night I keep seeing this thing come around, and I'm like, I thought, like, where is this thing with pot coming from? Like, I thought pot was over, right? Because it was so not a part of my life,
Right.
And just one
But
night,
when it was a part of your life, it was so negative that
Right.
you mentally had blocked it
right.
as.
But I had done, I was late 70s. I had done my fair share
Yeah,
and all
yeah.
that. So it was such a negative thing that it wasn't a part of my life. And then I kept seeing this, and I thought, I need to educate myself. Like, my mother educates herself all the time. So I thought, I'm going to watch this. So I recorded it, and one night I couldn't sleep, and I watched it, and I was fascinated. I watched all 4 segments all night long till 4:30 in the morning.
There you go.
I was fascinated. And
when your husband has cancer and the doctors still haven't really diagnosed him or given him anything yet, you start looking at things in the middle of the night like, maybe that'll help.
Well,
you know?
and all of a sudden I went, he needs this medicine. He needs the medicine, right? So I knew my stoner daughter would be able to help, and I said, you need to get your dad some help, and I got to go to Chicago, and you need to take care of him. So that's how it started. So our business is, or my business is industrial inkjet printers. Super sexy, right? It's like...
It's what you make of it.
Right? And it is. I love the industry that I'm in. So, but I get asked this all the time because I'm one of 3 women that I know that has a business in this industry globally.
Right.
Okay. So it's a good old boy industry. Well, when my husband passed away and Leslie was doing delivery service, right? I kept looking at the product that was coming in with no markings on it, nothing on it. Okay.
Right.
What we do is food and beverage and pharmaceutical packaging and compliance printing. So printing date codes, barcodes, lot codes, expiry date on food and beverage packaging and pharmaceutical. And so all of a sudden a light bulb went off, and I went, Leslie, there's a place in this industry for what I do, and I need to get into this industry. So I got into it by I was telling Tommy earlier, I joined Women Grow, and I started networking and started learning about it. And 5 years ago, I jumped in head first and went to my first business summit and expo and exhibited our equipment, which you have downstairs, some of our equipment. And people, you couldn't get near our booth because people in the cannabis industry were not yet thinking automation.
Right.
Right? And they were like, you can print on what? Right? It's food and beverage, it's edibles, right? And so that's how I got into this side of the industry. And it's given Leslie and I a bond that's been unbreakable.
Because she got into the corporate education side of it, and I was in the consumer, side of it, and it was like, okay.
But how great is it that, bing.
Oh.
Who do you really have to thank for this? Like really dig deep. And I want to ask, who do you have to thank for that transition? I know who it is, and I can tell you right now.
My late husband?
Exactly.
I think the circumstance definitely.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Absolutely.
Because if I say to you, let's say that your husband was still alive.
So, yeah.
Let's say that your husband didn't have cancer. Let's say that never happened. Mm-hmm. Do you think that there you go.
Oh no, the business.
So who do we think?
Yeah, but interestingly enough, being in this business, none of the men I know in this business, when I first started getting into it, wanted to touch cannabis. And I would be at these corporate dinners, right? And they would say, "Yeah, I hear you're in the weed business."
Mm-hmm.
And I go, "Yeah, I am." And And they go, what are you doing in the weed business? And I go, same thing I'm doing in the food and beverage
Yeah.
business. And they look at me like I was crazy.
And you know what? If
guess
my
what?
packaging was valuable in the porn business, I'd be packaging, porn shit.
And
I mean, it doesn't matter.
And guess what? Now they call me going, hey, we have an application. We've got a customer with an application. And have you ever done that kind of a thing? And I go, yeah, we have a customer over here in Northern California. I mean, we work with a lot of different companies, and it's been a really great part of what I do. And it's given me a voice in an industry that's very male dominated.
Yeah. And once again,
and then they want to know, do you smoke it? And I go, yes, I do.
It's a gift in a very strange way that came from your late husband on so many different levels. And I'm just sitting here, you know what I mean? I'm the moderator in this, but I'm just saying I listen to the stories and try to understand and to hear what you're saying, and then go, and you go, I was sitting up late at night, and my late husband, was diagnosed with cancer, and we're looking for this. And then I immediately go to Leslie and like, hey, we need to do this. And we need to do this. And it becomes this thing where there's a bond now being, created on that level. And mentally, you're taking this to the level of understanding that cannabis isn't just about getting high.
Right.
And you're helping your late husband, pull through this pass with as little pain as possible, but still being around and coherent and, and dealing with that part of it. And taking this to the level of now going, I've now taken a company that was never about cannabis, had nothing to do with cannabis, and now I'm thriving in that industry as a woman, cannabis, and people are coming to me, and my bond with my daughter is so much better, or not better, but it's
taken a turn. It's taken a different course.
Right.
But I will tell
for 35
you,
years. For 35 years, you were like so fuck cannabis.
Yeah. No, I was, but
that's how you got into cannabis.
Absolutely, and if he was still alive,
you wouldn't be in cannabis.
We wouldn't be in cannabis.
I can guarantee you wouldn't be.
I can guarantee we wouldn't be.
Yeah.
Even when I took him to get his medical card, I was sitting in the lobby, and the lady had the door kind of open a little bit, and he goes in there to have his interview. And, she's sitting there, and she says, how can I help you? And he's like, I'm 62. I have cancer. I've been through, Vietnam and this and that in my entire life, and I've never smoked at all, and I've never done this, and give me a medical card. And she's like, do you really want that? And he's like, my wife says I need this, so get me that, and so walks out, and he looks at me and he goes, all right, I got the card, now what? And I'm like, well, now we order you some weed, and he's like, okay, and it really wasn't even, like, I never even got the opportunity to smoke with my dad, but it wouldn't be the same as me smoking with my mom,
Yeah, but I mean, it's not about the opportunity to,
it's what I can provide for
exactly.
him at the time,
it's not about the opportunity, and, it's more to be able to look back and go, wow, like look, this is what's great.
Together,
this is what's great about this and about this podcast is the fact that it's like it all sums up to, what is cannabis doing for you, and it's also part of it is what has it done for you.
Mm-hmm. It's brought us closer together.
Yeah,
it gave us a purpose,
right? And as well, like with your late husband, it gave a reasoning of accepting something that he or you had not accepted for many of years, which puts him into passing feeling much more comfortable knowing that he was able to understand things that he didn't before he passed, and just to know that what you have been doing hasn't been so wrong.
Right.
And now to be able to look at it and go, wow, like look at what you've done in an industry and are now taking it to the level in cannabis. And this is big because once again, that's what this is about. And we see people all the time and it's like, how did you end up in cannabis? And watch these podcasts because you will see amazing people that have been doing amazing things in business, and whether or not it falls off or it kind of plateaus or whatever it is, cannabis is giving people a new
platform. It's a new platform.
It's a new platform, but it's also like people that have been in business for 30, 40 years, running companies. It's a breath of fresh air. It's like they walk through a door to Willy Wonka's, factory, and they're part of that. They're the ones that are doing this. Maybe they're not actually making the candy, but you know what? They're making the equipment that makes the candy, which in turn gives them a new lease on what they're doing.
Which, by the way, just so you know, and you can make sure you get this, my company is Tourmaline Enterprises.
Oh, yeah, Tommy.
Oh, finally. Don't worry.
Tourmaline Enterprises.
The only reason that it won't get on there is because you didn't give it to Tommy.
I'm going to give it to you, Tommy, and
it.
I'll make sure all you people have it who need it.
So,
George, it's been great.
No, listen, I mean, this is like so much fun, and it always is. And I think the better side of this is everybody gets to see that this was a Mother's Day podcast, but I have no idea where this thing went. It went in so many different directions. But the great thing too is that we always leave this kind of like
you want
open.
More,
And we leave it open so that it's not like, hey, see you never. It's like, okay, we're gonna do this again, and it's always gonna be that welcoming side. And so, and I said earlier on, I look forward to looking back in this way of a year from now, we're going to be doing these again. And it's, I promise it's just going to be, it'll be a wow. Like, look at where we were in this studio, a year ago, you know what I mean? And that's the best part of this.
And it's incumbent upon us as business owners, and I have to say this because you're part of this as well, to continue to go out into the world and do the good things, like the walk that we did together. And give back to the community.
If you didn't get it in the beginning of the podcast,
it's so
I was
good.
being politically correct in saying that if you haven't gone on one, it's not that you're a loser, but you are a fucking loser. Because if you don't experience it, don't talk shit. That's all I can say is because, and the same thing when I talk about pride and we'll go through a whole bunch of other things as well, because it's not about the React Foundation as much as it is. It's about people getting up off their chairs and getting out and being active in the communities and really testing yourself to see what you're capable of, just getting out and being a part of it. It's crazy. But more so is the fact that Tommy's eagerly standing back here with gifts. And I'll be honest with you, I have no idea what these are. So I'm as excited as you guys are.
Thank you, Tommy.
What's it feel like?
Thanks, Tommy.
Oh, it feels good.
Let's wrap up.
If you haven't, I'm not going to call you a loser for not liking and subscribing, but you're missing out. These are getting good. I'll be honest with you. And I think the biggest thing to understand is that it's really a podcast for fun and information, and just to see people and companies and whatnot that are transitioning or thinking cannabis and what it's doing for you on any level. That's what this is about. And so, from the number one cannabis podcast in the nation, we are done and thankful for having the Mother's Day, the first Mother's Day.
Thank you for letting me be a part of it. George.
Adios.
Thanks.
Adios.
Peace out.
Deuces.